I've fished in dozens of lakes, rivers, and creeks, but nothing could prepare me for the night I went alone to a place no one else dared to visit. Every sound, every shadow, every ripple in the water that night told me one thing. I was not alone, and whatever was in the water was waiting for me. This is the story of the night that nearly consumed me, and the truth I still can't escape. I've always loved night fishing. There's a serenity to it that daytime trips can't provide. The way the darkness wraps around the river, the sound of your own breathing amplified against the quiet, and the thrill of being completely alone with the water. That night, I packed my gear, a small lantern, and my favorite rod, ready for a few hours of solitude at a remote lake I discovered months ago. The drive there was uneventful, but as I turned onto the gravel path leading to the lake, a creeping unease settled over me. The sky was clear, the moon spilling silver over the trees, but there was something wrong. The lake itself looked innocent enough at first. Calm, smooth, reflecting the night sky like a mirror. I walked carefully across the damp grass and settled in my usual spot near an old wooden pier. The smell of mud and algae filled the air, but there was another scent too, metallic, almost like iron, faint but unmistakable. I ignored it, set up my rod, and cast my line, trying to lose myself in the familiar rhythm. For a while, nothing happened. The only sound was the soft splash of my lure and the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. But then I noticed movement under the pier. At first, I thought it was a fish, maybe a large catfish brushing against the posts. But the movements were too deliberate, almost human. A shadow slipped along the water beneath the pier, long, thin, and jerky. My chest tightened. I leaned closer, shining my lantern under the dock. The shadows shifted. Wet, gnarled hands seemed to stretch along the beams, but the angle was wrong. The fingers too long, too thin, bending in ways a normal hand never could. My stomach twisted, and the first whisper reached my ears. Soft, wet, almost like gurgling, repeating my name. "Hey," I called, voice shaking. No reply, just the whispering echoing across the water. The line tugged violently, dragging my rod toward the lake. I yanked back, expecting a fish, but the weight was wrong, solid, deliberate, impossible. I felt it pull, testing me aware. My heart pounded. I stumbled backward, tripping over a plank, and the lantern swung wildly, casting dancing shadows that seemed alive. The water beneath the pier churned. Something large moved just below the surface. I could see the faint outline of a head, elongated, tilting unnaturally, and a body that stretched in ways no human could manage. Panic surged. I turned to run, but the whispers followed, wet and low, echoing in my skull. I made it to the bank, lungs burning, mud clinging to my boots. When I finally reached my truck, I paused to look back. The pier was silent again, the water smooth. No shape, no movement, but I could feel it, watching, waiting. My hands shook as I started the truck and drove home, trying to convince myself it had been a trick of the shadows. That night, sleep was impossible. Every sound, creaks in my apartment, dripping water, even the hum of the refrigerator, sounded like whispers calling my name. I couldn't stop imagining the lake, the twisted limbs, the long fingers reaching from beneath the pier. I didn't fish again for months, sticking only to crowded, sunlit lakes. But the memory followed me. Every shadow, every reflection of water at night, made my heart skip. I knew the echoing depths weren't just a place. They were alive, intelligent, patient, waiting for anyone foolish enough to venture alone into the darkness. Months later, I drove past the lake during the day. The pier looked normal. Sunlight glinted off calm water. Birds sang. Nothing moved. But I know what waits there. I know what calls from beneath. And I know, if I ever return alone at night, I will not come back. I have been fishing Blackwater Creek for years. Most people avoided it, calling it cursed or haunted, but I was drawn to it. The creek cut through the forest like a black ribbon, water dark and silent, the trees leaning close as if whispering secrets to one another. Every time I went, I felt alive in a way no other place offered. That night, I packed lightly a rod, tackle box, lantern, and a thermos of coffee. and set off, unaware it would be the last normal night I would ever have on the creek. The sky was overcast, the moon hidden behind a thin veil of clouds. I arrived at the creek just as twilight faded into darkness. Fog crept along the water, curling and twisting unnaturally, like fingers reaching across the surface. I parked at the old trailhead, the gravel crunching beneath my tires, and stepped out, the chill immediately biting through my jacket. I followed the narrow path to my usual fishing spot, where an old, fallen log jutted into the creek, forming a makeshift pier. The forest was unnaturally silent. No crickets, no frogs, no birds, just a soft rush of water, heavy and slow. I set up my rod, baited my hooks, and cast. The water was black, mirror still, reflecting only the faint light of my lantern. Minutes passed. Nothing. Then a sudden tug. Not the gentle pull of a fish, but a violent, deliberate jerk. I yanked back, startled, and the rod nearly tore from my hands. The line went slack, and the water rippled unnaturally. My stomach dropped. Something was under the water, and it wasn't normal. I shone my lantern across the creek. The fog swirled, and for a brief moment, I thought I saw a figure moving beneath the water, long and thin, limbs twisting at impossible angles. Panic surged. My mind screamed at me to leave, but curiosity anchored me. The tug came again, stronger this time, and the rasping sound started. Low, wet, almost like someone trying to breathe underwater. I froze. My heart pounded. The shape beneath the water grew clearer, or maybe my eyes were adjusting. Pale, elongated arms, bending at impossible joints, reaching toward the surface. The head tilted unnaturally, and the eyes, or voids where eyes should be, stared directly at me. I stumbled backward, tripping over the log and falling hard onto the muddy bank. My lantern clattered beside me, casting wild shadows that danced across the fog and trees. I scrambled to my feet, knowing I needed to leave, but the creek wasn't done. Footprints appeared in the mud along the bank, large and human-shaped, but impossible, leading from the forest to the water, then vanishing. My pulse raced. Something intelligent had come to the creek, had stepped from the shadows into the water, and now I could feel it watching, waiting. I ran. Branches scratched my arms, roots clawed at my feet, and mud sucked at my boots, but I didn't care. I had to get to my truck. Behind me, I heard it, the wet, rasping, whispering, echoing through the trees, following me. I dare not look back, but I could feel its presence, pressing on me like a physical weight. Reaching the truck, I slammed the door and locked it, heart hammering so hard I thought it would burst. The headlights cut a narrow path through the fog, revealing the creek calm and smooth once more, black water reflecting the lantern I had dropped. But I knew it was there, just beneath the surface, patient and deliberate. I sat shaking, gripping the wheel, unwilling to breathe fully, unwilling to look away. Sleep didn't come that night. Every sound, water dripping in my bathroom, the creak of floorboards, even the wind through the trees, echoed in my mind as the wet rasping, calling my name, teasing me. For weeks, I avoided fishing. I told myself I imagined it, that the night and the stress of life had played tricks on me. But deep down, I knew better. Days later, I returned during daylight, hoping sunlight would dispel my fear. The creek appeared calm, ordinary, the fog gone. Birds chirped, and water flowed gently. The footprints were gone. Nothing moved, but I could feel it. The memory of those twisted limbs, the impossible head tilt, the wet whisper clung to me. The creek had changed. It had marked me. I tried to sleep again. That night, I heard faint splashes in my apartment, impossible reflections in my window. I began to see shapes and shadows, elongated limbs, void-like eyes, heads tilting unnaturally. My mind screamed that it was overactive imagination, but my gut knew it wasn't. Something from Blackwater Creek had followed me. Weeks turned into months. I avoided all fishing at night, stuck to well-lit, crowded lakes, and avoided water after dark. But every night, faintly, I hear the whispering. Sometimes when the wind shifts just right, it sounds wet like someone breathing through water, calling me back. I know it's only a matter of time before it tests me again. I've never gone back to Blackwater Creek at night. I haven't fished alone in the dark, but I carry it with me. The memory of those long, twisted limbs beneath the water, the rasping whisper, the intelligence in the darkness. I know that if I ever return, I will not come back. And I know that something from the creek has already left its mark on me, following me in silence, patient, hungry, waiting for the next time I think on the lake. Fishing had always been my escape, my way of forgetting the city, the work, the noise. I thought I knew what solitude was, until I went to Moonlit Lake. No one spoke of it, not even the locals. They called it beautiful, serene, but there was an undercurrent of fear whenever the subject arose. I didn't care. I needed quiet, the soft splash of water, the feel of the night wrapping around me. That night, I would learn that Moonlit Lake held secrets far darker than I had imagined. I arrived just as the sun disappeared behind the tree line. The lake was calm, the water reflecting the moon like polished glass. Mist drifted over the surface, curling unnaturally along the bank. I parked at a narrow, overgrown trail, grabbed my rod and tackle box, and followed the path to my usual spot, a small, weathered dock jutting into the water. Every step I took, the mist seemed to thicken, curling around my legs as if alive. The air smelled damp and earthy, but there was another scent I couldn't place, metallic, sharp, and bitter. I set up my chair and baited my hook, casting my line into the black water. At first, everything was normal. The usual noises of the forest, crickets, rustling leaves, seemed absent. Absolute silence pressed down on me. I tried to relax, but the feeling of being watched was overwhelming. I glanced around the tree line, expecting a deer or some animal, but saw nothing. Just the black water, the mist, and the dock stretching into the lake like a finger pointing at something I couldn't see. Then I felt it, a tug on the line. Strong, deliberate, intelligent. I yanked back, but the weight resisted. Not a fish. Something under the water was alive, aware, testing me. My lantern illuminated the surface, but the water remained dark, opaque, unnatural. The tugging intensified. The line pulled toward the center of the lake, and I realized I was staring at something moving beneath the surface. I froze. The water rippled as a shape slowly emerged. At first, I thought it was a log, but it didn't float. It glided impossibly fast, and then the form became clearer. Pale, thin limbs, bending at impossible angles, rose from the lake. A head tilted unnaturally, eyes void-like, void of any humanity. My heart pounded. I wanted to run, but my legs refused to move. The water around it rippled in impossible patterns, curling outward as if the lake itself obeyed this thing. A whisper reached my ears. Low, wet gurgling my name. The sound made the hair on my arms stand on end. I stumbled backward, almost falling off the dock. The line jerked violently. I could feel it pulling, tugging at something far stronger than a fish. Panic surged through me. I grabbed the rod, pulling with all my strength, but the weight was unyielding. Whatever was beneath the lake had me on a leash playing with me. The figure beneath the water rose higher. Limbs stretched, pale and slimy, twisting at angles no living creature should be able to move. The head tilted to the side, its void-like eyes locking onto mine. My stomach churned. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. The whispers grew louder, wet and urgent, echoing across the still lake. I stumbled backward, crashing my lantern into the dock, sending sparks and light flickering across the black surface. I ran. The dock shook beneath me as I scrambled onto the muddy bank, roots and mud tearing at my hands and clothes. The rasping whisper followed, echoing in my ears, chilling and deliberate. My heart felt like it would explode. I didn't dare look back, but I could feel the presence behind me, patient and aware. Every instinct screamed at me to flee. Branches scratched my arms, roots caught my feet, mud sucked at my boots, but I didn't stop. I reached my truck, slammed the doors, and sat trembling. The headlights illuminated the lake in a narrow strip, calm and mirror-like, but I knew better. Something was beneath the surface, waiting. I gripped the wheel, chest heaving, and whispered to myself that I would never come back. but I knew it was lying in wait, patient, intelligent, aware of me. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak in my apartment sounded like wet fingers against wood. Every shadow in the corner of the room seemed alive. I imagined the shape beneath the lake, long limbs twisting, head tilting unnaturally, void-like eyes searching for me. For weeks, I avoided any body of water after dark. I even stopped fishing altogether. But Moonlit Lake had left its mark. Its presence lingered, always on the edge of perception, in shadows and reflections. Weeks later, I drove past Moonlit Lake during the day. It looked peaceful, serene, mist-dawn, birds singing. The dock appeared normal, the water reflective like any lake. But I knew what lurked beneath. I could feel it, watching, patient. The memory of that night had embedded itself into my mind. Even sunlight couldn't erase the terror. At night, faintly, I hear whispers. Low, wet, gurgling. My name. They echo in my mind, a reminder that Moonlit Lake is not just a lake. It is a trap, alive and aware. I've never returned. I've never fished alone at night since. But the shape beneath the water is still there, waiting for the next person who thinks solitude in the dark is worth the risk. I still dream of it, of the black water curling around impossible limbs, the tilting head, the void-like eyes. And every time I do, I wake drenched in sweat, heart racing, knowing I barely escaped, and that Moonlit Lake is patient. It will wait, and one day, it will not let anyone go.